Have you ever felt like you were invisible to the world? Like no matter how hard you worked or how much you gave, nobody truly saw you for who you really are. That crushing feeling when you realize you're just another face in the crowd, another person society has decided doesn't matter enough. Tonight I want to share a story about a man who spent his entire life being overlooked, dismissed, treated as if his existence was nothing more than background noise. But one night, one single choice to help someone when the entire world told him to look away. That choice would connect him to something so extraordinary, so impossible, that it would shatter everything he thought he knew about his place in the universe. This is a story about the kind of connection that defies logic, about love that transcends worlds, and about discovering that sometimes the most ordinary person can become someone's entire universe. If you've ever felt small, if you've ever wondered if your life matters, this story is for you. Before we begin, I want to invite you into this community we're building here. We share stories that touch the soul, stories about hope, transformation, and the moments that remind us we're all connected. If that speaks to you, consider subscribing so you never miss another story like this. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? Drop a comment below and tell me your city or country. It means everything to know you're here, listening, being part of this journey with us. We read every single comment, and your presence here, right now, makes this community what it is. Now, let's begin. The garage sat at the edge of Riverside, a forgotten industrial town where factories had closed decades ago, and hope seemed to have packed up and left with the jobs. Marcus Webb had inherited the place from his father, a small auto repair shop that barely made enough to keep the lights on. At 32 years old, Marcus had become invisible. Not literally, of course, but in every way that mattered. People looked through him when he walked down the street. Women never gave him a second glance. Even his regular customers treated him like a necessary inconvenience, dropping off their cars with barely a greeting and picking them up with even less gratitude. He'd stopped expecting more. This was his life. Wake up in the apartment above the garage, work on cars all day, eat dinner alone, fall asleep to the sound of the highway. Repeat. He'd accepted it the way you accept gravity or the changing of seasons. Some people were meant to be seen, others were meant to be the background. On this particular September night, Marcus was closing up late. A transmission job had taken longer than expected, and it was nearly midnight by the time he'd finished. He was pulling down the garage door when he heard it. A sound like metal scraping against concrete, coming from the alley behind his shop. His first instinct was to ignore it, probably just cats fighting over trash. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the pitch of the sound, too musical somehow, too deliberate. Maybe it was just exhaustion making him curious. Whatever the reason, he grabbed his flashlight and walked around back. What he found made him drop the flashlight. In the narrow alley between his garage and the abandoned warehouse next door, something was crashed. Not a car, not a plane, something else entirely. It was roughly the size of a motorcycle, but its surface seemed to shift between metallic and almost organic, like liquid mercury frozen in an impossible shape. Symbols glowed faintly along its sides, pulsing with a soft blue light that hurt to look at directly, and beside it, slumped against the brick wall, was a woman. At least, she looked like a woman. Marcus approached slowly, his heart hammering. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with long silver hair that seemed to catch light that wasn't there. Her skin had an unusual luminescence to it, pale but with an almost imperceptible shimmer. She wore clothing that looked like it was woven from starlight itself, form-fitting and clearly not from any store Marcus had ever seen. But it was her face that stopped him. Even unconscious, even covered in what looked like burns and cuts, she was the most beautiful person he'd ever seen. Her features were delicate but strong, otherworldly but somehow familiar, and when his flashlight beam crossed her face, her eyes opened. They were gold. Pure molten gold with no white, no iris, just that impossible metallic color that seemed to glow from within. She looked at him with confusion and fear, trying to push herself up but collapsing back against the wall with a gasp of pain. "Please," she said, and her voice had a strange quality to it, like multiple tones layered over each other. "Please don't alert the authorities. They cannot know I'm here." Marcus should have run, should have called the police, should have done literally anything except what he did next. But looking at her, seeing the terror in those golden eyes, the desperation, he recognized something. He'd seen that look before, in his own mirror, the look of someone who knew the world wouldn't help them, who knew they were completely alone. "You're hurt," he heard himself say. "Can you walk?" She tried again, managed to get to her feet this time, but her legs buckled. Marcus caught her, supporting her weight, and was shocked by how light she felt, like she was made of something less substantial than flesh and bone. "My vessel," she said, looking back at the crashed craft. I need to hide it. If they track the signature, if they find it here, they'll find me. Who's they? Marcus asked. But she was already losing consciousness, her golden eyes flickering. Marcus made a decision. He didn't think about it, didn't weigh the consequences, just acted. He helped her up the stairs to his apartment, got her onto his bed, then spent the next 2 hours using his garage equipment to drag the crashed vessel inside and cover it with tarps. By the time he made it back upstairs, the sun was starting to rise and the woman was awake, sitting up in his bed and looking around his small apartment with those unsettling golden eyes. You helped me, she said, and it sounded like an accusation and a question at the same time. You're welcome, Marcus said, suddenly very aware of how small and shabby his apartment was. Peeling wallpaper, second-hand furniture, the smell of motor oil that never quite went away. She studied him for a long moment. Why? You don't know me. You don't know what I am. Why would you risk yourself? You needed help, Marcus said simply. Isn't that enough? She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. In my experience, nothing is ever that simple. Everyone wants something. I don't want anything, Marcus said, except maybe to know your name, and what exactly crashed in my alley. She was silent for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, My name is Lisa, and I'm not from your world. Yeah, Marcus said. I kind of figured that part out. I'm from a civilization you would call the Etherian Collective, Lisa continued. My family has ruled our homeworld for 3,000 of your years. I am, in your terms, what you might call a princess. Marcus blinked. A princess? Yes. An alien princess crashed behind my garage. Technically, it was a controlled crash, mostly controlled. The vessel's navigation systems were damaged in the attack. Attack? Marcus sat down heavily in his desk chair. Maybe you should start from the beginning. And so she told him. About her world, a planet called Ethera in a star system 12,000 light-years from Earth. About her people's advanced technology, their mastery of dimensional travel, their complex political structure. About the coup that had taken place 3 weeks ago. Her uncle, power-hungry and ruthless, had orchestrated the assassination of her parents and her 2 older brothers. Lisa had only survived because she'd been off-world, visiting a research station at the edge of their territory. When she'd learned what happened, she'd stolen an experimental scout vessel and ran. They've been hunting me ever since, she said. I've jumped across half the galaxy trying to lose them. Earth was supposed to be a safe place to hide. Your world is considered primitive, isolated. My people have strict protocols about not interfering with developing civilizations. I thought they wouldn't follow me here. But they did, Marcus said. They're here. I detected their signatures before my vessel crashed. They haven't found me yet, but they will. It's only a matter of time. Marcus should have been terrified, should have told her to leave, to take her problem somewhere else. But instead he asked, how much time? Lisa looked at him with something that might have been respect. Their tracking systems are sophisticated but not instantaneous. If I can mask my biosignature, stay hidden, they might give up and search elsewhere. A few days, maybe a week. Then you stay here, Marcus said. Stay as long as you need. Why would you do that? The same question again. The same disbelief. Because you need help, Marcus repeated. And because I know what it's like to feel like the whole world is against you. For the first time, Lisa smiled. It transformed her entire face, made her seem less alien and more achingly human. Thank you, Marcus Webb. You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, Marcus admitted. And so began the strangest week of Marcus's life. During the day, he worked in the garage as usual, fixing cars and dealing with customers. But every spare moment, he was upstairs with Lisa, learning about her world, her people, her life before everything fell apart. She was brilliant, he discovered. Not just intelligent, but curious about everything. She asked him endless questions about Earth, about human culture, about his life. No one had ever been so interested in him before. No one had ever looked at him the way she did, like he was someone worth knowing. Tell me about your parents, she asked one evening as they sat on his small balcony, looking out at the industrial wasteland of Riverside. They're gone, Marcus said. Dad died 5 years ago. Heart attack. Mom left when I was 12. Just packed up one day and disappeared. Never heard from her again. I'm sorry, Lisa said softly. So am I, Marcus said. But it is what it is. You learn to be alone. You shouldn't have to be, Lisa said. Marcus looked at her, at the way the setting sun caught her silver hair, made her skin shimmer. What about you? What were your parents like? Lisa's expression grew distant. My father was stern but fair. He believed deeply in duty. in the responsibility of leadership. He taught me that power is not a privilege but a burden, something to be wielded with care. My mother was different. She was warm, creative. She loved art and music. She used to tell me that ruling isn't just about making hard decisions. It's about understanding the hearts of your people. They sound incredible, Marcus said. They were, Lisa said. And I failed them. I ran instead of fighting. I abandoned my people when they needed me most. You survived, Marcus said. That's not failure. That's strength. Is it? Lisa asked. Because right now, hiding in a mechanic's apartment on a backwater planet, I feel anything but strong. You're alive, Marcus said, which means you still have a chance to make things right. That takes more strength than dying would have. Lisa looked at him and something shifted in her golden eyes. How is it that a human I met 3 days ago understands me better than people I've known my entire life? Maybe because I know what it feels like to be powerless, Marcus said. To feel like nothing you do matters. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun disappear behind the abandoned factories. Then Lisa said, Marcus, when this is over, when I leave, I want you to know something. These days with you, they've been the first time I've felt safe since the coup. The first time I felt like maybe I'm not completely alone. Thank you for that. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do, Lisa said. Because you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. On the 7th day, everything changed. Marcus was in the garage underneath a Chevy Silverado when he heard the door open. He rolled out, expecting a customer, and found himself staring at 3 figures who definitely weren't human. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that looked like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed red. They wore armor that seemed to be made of the same shifting material as Lisa's vessel, and they moved with predatory grace. Marcus Webb, one of them said, and their voice was like gravel scraping against glass. You are harboring a fugitive. Surrender Lisa Solena Ethis and you will be spared. Marcus's blood turned to ice. But before he could respond, before he could even think, Lisa was there. She must have heard them arrive, must have come down from the apartment. She stepped between Marcus and the hunters, her posture regal despite wearing his old sweatpants and a faded band t-shirt. Leave him out of this, she said, and her voice had changed. It resonated with authority, with power. This was not the frightened refugee he'd been sheltering. This was a princess. He's done nothing wrong. Your quarrel is with me. Our orders are clear, the lead hunter said. You will return to Ethera to face judgment for treason and theft of royal property. Treason? Lisa laughed, cold and sharp. My uncle murdered my entire family. He's the traitor. I am the rightful heir to the crystal throne. The council has declared otherwise, the hunter said. Lord Tavrin rules by their decree. You are nothing but an inconvenient loose end. Then come collect your loose end, Lisa said. But you leave the human alone. No, Marcus said, stepping forward. All eyes turned to him. I said no, Marcus repeated, his voice stronger now. You want to take her. You go through me first. The hunters laughed. It was a terrible sound. Brave, one said. But futile. You are an insect compared to us. Maybe, Marcus said. But this insect's got access to a lot of motor oil and a welding torch, and I bet even Etherian armor has weak points. Marcus, don't, Lisa said. They'll kill you. Probably, Marcus agreed. But I'm not letting them take you without a fight. For a moment nobody moved. Then everything happened at once. The hunters moved forward. Lisa threw herself at them, golden light erupting from her hands in a way Marcus didn't know was possible. There was a fight, brutal and brief, and Marcus did exactly what he'd promised. He grabbed the nearest weapon, which happened to be a tire iron, and swung it at the closest hunter with everything he had. The impact jarred his entire arm. It was like hitting a steel beam. But it gave Lisa an opening. She struck with that golden energy, and the hunter went down. The other two hesitated, reassessing. Go, Lisa shouted at Marcus. Get to your vehicle. Drive as far away as you can. I'm not leaving you, Marcus said. You have to, Lisa said, and he saw tears in her golden eyes. Marcus, they'll kill you. Please. But Marcus didn't run. And in that moment, something changed in Lisa's expression. She looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw a decision being made. She raised both hands and golden light exploded from her in a wave that knocked the hunters back and sent Marcus sprawling. When his vision cleared, Lisa was standing over him, her body glowing with that impossible light, her silver hair floating as if in an invisible wind. You want me? She shouted at the hunters. Then take me. But you harm him and I will unleash every bit of power I have left. I will tear this building down around us. I will make sure none of us survive. Do you understand? The hunters looked at each other. Then one spoke into a device on their wrist. Confirmed. The princess has developed quantum bonding with the native. Recommend extraction with preservation protocols. Quantum bonding. Marcus didn't understand the term, but he understood the tone. Something had changed in their calculations. The lead hunter approached slowly, carefully. Princess Lisa, we have new orders. You will return to Ethera. The human will be unharmed, held as a diplomatic guest until the situation is resolved. You have my word. Your word means nothing, Lisa spat. Perhaps, the hunter said. But it's the best option you have. Come willingly or we take you by force. Either way, we're leaving this world. But if you fight, the human dies. If you cooperate, he lives. Lisa looked at Marcus and in her eyes he saw everything she couldn't say. Then she turned back to the hunters. I'll go. But if you harm him, if you break your word, I will find a way to make you pay. I swear it on my father's name. They took her. Marcus tried to fight, tried to stop them, but one of the hunters hit him with something that felt like lightning, and he went down hard. The last thing he saw before he lost consciousness was Lisa being led toward a vessel that had appeared above his garage. Tears streaming down her face, mouthing words he couldn't hear but somehow understood. I'm sorry. When Marcus woke up, it was 3 days later. He was in a hospital with government agents surrounding his bed, asking him questions he couldn't answer. They'd found his garage destroyed, found evidence of something they couldn't explain, found him unconscious and burned in ways that shouldn't have been survivable. He told them everything. Why not? They wouldn't believe him anyway. And he was right. They didn't. They called it trauma-induced delusion, kept him for psychiatric evaluation, eventually released him when he proved he wasn't a danger to himself or others. Marcus returned to what was left of his life. The garage was destroyed, but insurance actually paid out. He rebuilt, opened a new shop, went through the motions of living. But everything was different now. He wasn't invisible anymore, not to himself. Because for 1 week, he'd mattered to someone. For 1 week, he'd been seen. For 1 week, he'd been everything to a princess from the stars. 2 years passed. Marcus had almost convinced himself it had been a dream when she came back. He was closing up the new garage, a much nicer place thanks to the insurance money, when he felt the air change. That same electric sensation from before. He looked up and there she was. Lisa. Standing in the middle of his garage, wearing armor that looked like it was forged from starlight itself, a crown of crystallized energy floating above her silver hair. She looked older somehow, more regal, more powerful. But her eyes were the same. Those impossible golden eyes that had haunted his dreams for 2 years. Marcus, she said, and her voice cracked. Hi, he said stupidly. You came back. I promised I wouldn't forget you, Lisa said. And I never break my promises. She crossed the space between them in 3 strides and kissed him. Really kissed him. The kind of kiss that makes the world disappear. When they finally broke apart, Marcus was shaking. What happened? Are you okay? Did your uncle? Did he? He's dead, Lisa said. I killed him myself. It took me 2 years to gather enough support, to build an army, to take back my throne. But I did it. I won. That's incredible, Marcus said. But what about the quantum bonding thing? What did they mean? Lisa smiled, sad and beautiful. It means that in my culture, when 2 souls connect deeply enough, when they truly see each other, it creates a bond that transcends physical distance. It's rare, especially between different species. But Marcus, the moment you chose to help me, the moment you put yourself between me and the hunters, something inside me just knew. You were the one. The one what? Marcus asked. The one person in all the universe who would see me not as a princess, not as a symbol, not as a weapon or a prize, but just as Lisa, just as someone who needed help. Tears were streaming down her face now. And I saw you too. Not as a nobody mechanic in a dying town. I saw someone with more honor and courage than any noble I've ever known. I saw someone worth saving too. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now I'm giving you a choice, Lisa said. I can't stay here. I have a kingdom to rebuild, a people to lead. But I want you with me. Come to Ethera. Be with me. Not as my subject, but as my equal. As my partner. As the person who taught me that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism are the quiet ones. The ones nobody sees. Marcus looked around his garage. At the life he'd built. the safe, small, invisible life. Then he looked at Lysa, at this impossible woman from the stars who had chosen him. Who saw him? When do we leave? Marcus asked. Lysa's smile could have lit the entire galaxy. Right now. And so Marcus Webb, the invisible mechanic from Riverside, left Earth behind. He stepped aboard an Etherian vessel, left his old life behind, and began something new. Something impossible. Something extraordinary. Years later, visitors to Ethera would speak in whispers about the human consort to the Crystal Queen. About the man from a primitive world who had saved their queen not once but twice. First by offering shelter when she had nothing, then by teaching her that true strength comes not from power, but from compassion. About the mechanic who became a king. But Marcus never forgot where he came from. Never forgot what it felt like to be invisible. And whenever he and Lysa would walk through the streets of the Crystal City, he made sure to notice the people others didn't see. The workers, the servants, the forgotten ones. Because he'd learned something that week in Riverside. Something Lysa had taught him just by letting him matter. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is see someone. Really see them. And sometimes, when you choose to help someone the world has overlooked, you don't just change their life, you change your own, you change everything.